Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I'm here with David Eckert, and we are going to be talking Peach Bowl and all of that good stuff. Have you covered Penn State before?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I for those viewers that don't know, I guess the cat's out of the bag. I went to Penn State. So, and then I stuck around. I covered them as a student doing student media stuff, but then I worked probably for about a year and a half, 2 years after school covering them. So it's been a reunion week for me. I'm just seeing a ton of people that I know. So it's been fun. But
yeah, I figured, because I knew you were from Pennsylvania. So I figured it would be pretty close. And for people that do not know and might be catching for the first time, he's from Scranton, right?
Yes. The Office. The Office, Stephen. That's the first word out of everybody's mouth. So
pretty good. Yeah. Has anybody ever asked you if you knew Michael Scott?
No. No. But most people know that The Office was not filmed there. But some people don't. So I do get to like crush people's dreams when I inform them of that. Like, actually, it was filmed in California, not like cold, horrible, dreary, like northeastern Pennsylvania in winter. I hate to burst your bubble, but yeah,
they did a really good job of finding that office building though, because that looks like something that is kind of area specific there.
Yeah, the Chili's, by the way, the Scranton Chili's is very similar to what they've got going on in the show as well, which is I found very funny.
That is good to know. That's the Dundies, right?
Yep.
So anyway, we just spent 2 minutes talking about the office in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Let's talk about the Peach Bowl just a little bit. You know, before we get into that, honestly, Ole Miss has all the momentum in the world. They've had just a crazy last couple of weeks. It continues with rumors and stuff going through there. And it's gotten to the point where I think if Ole Miss wins this game, they're going to be the part of just the conversation. They're just going to be in that ether to where everybody's talking about them. Now, it doesn't matter if they lose this game. They're going to be equally as good, and all their goals are going to be in front of them just like before that could be attained. But if Ole Miss wins this game, the national narrative will be that of a top 5 team, a top 6 team, potentially hosting a home playoff game in the 12-team playoff. That means this Peach Bowl is important, but it's not a must win, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't know. It's weird because I struggle with the does this matter question, you know, because I do believe in momentum, like you mentioned, but at the same time, it's like if as you mentioned there too, if they lose, does it really matter? Probably not. You know, they've still got all these huge names coming in that are, you know, gonna, you know, make them at least, I think, a top 10 team preseason, maybe better than that. We'll see how the rest of it plays out. But yeah, it's, you know, having conversations with the coaching staff today, and really last week as well for signing day, the takeaway that I had is the winning is really starting to matter. Right. Like I'm writing about NIL right now. I'm going to have a story that drops tomorrow about that. But that matters. Lane Kiffin matters. All of that matters. And all of that has played into what they've been able to do this offseason. But so has the winning. And I think that's maybe gone under discussed. Right. Like there is proof of concept, not 1 year wonder proof of concept. Like, hey, here's a program that is sustained winning in the SEC, which is extremely difficult to do, that has its stuff together as it relates to NIL, that has, you know, one of the premier coaches in college football. So that's kind of created this environment where, as you mentioned, just everything is coming up Ole Miss to like a ridiculous degree. Even with the bowl game, like what needed to happen for them to get into this bowl game is wild. So it's just, I think you're right. Just everything has kind of gone in their favor lately.
Yeah, it was Florida State winning the ACC and not making the playoff. That was Ole Miss's path to Atlanta. It was absolutely bizarre. And, you know, I was just thinking about something you said, that Ole Miss is starting to win enough to where everybody talks about NIL and how much players cost and all of that stuff, but they don't realize that it's a sliding scale. If you have a 5-star athlete, it costs less money for that player to go to Alabama than it does for them to go to Vanderbilt. And it's going to be important for Ole Miss to keep winning to get that cost even down as much as they can, I think.
Yeah, I actually was having a conversation with somebody about this today. The narrative, and I think it's a correct narrative, has been, hey, Ole Miss is going all out for 2024 because it's a 12-team playoff, and if they have their stuff together, they can get in, right? But it doesn't have to just be this 1-year thing, because if you get in 2024 and you show well in 2024, that makes it easier to get in 2025. That, as you mentioned there, the sliding scale, the numbers on the check probably can be a little bit smaller if you have that extra degree of sustained success that we're talking about. So yeah, that totally matters 100%. The other stuff matters too, but you still have to win at this, to compete at the level that they want.
Yeah, that proof of concept is so important for Ole Miss. Now, let's turn our attention to the Peach Bowl with I'm going to say your Nittany Lions, since you graduated from there and playing against Ole Miss. What are the keys to this game, honestly? I mean, all seriously, what are the keys to this game? Is this just as simple as the same thing that Texas A&M was, to where it's just a front 7 game, and if Ole Miss can block them, Ole Miss will have success?
I really think both trenches, because that's where Penn State on paper is better, right? Like I would take Penn State's front 7 defensively, and I would take Penn State's offensive line offensively. So if Ole Miss can mitigate that, then I like Ole Miss in this game. And look, I think Ole Miss has done a good job of that, because on paper, how many teams, did Ole Miss play this year where maybe they didn't have the best matchup on paper, in the trenches, and they've done a good job working around that, to me. The other thing is, look, Penn State is not an explosive pass offense. It just isn't. So defensively, if you can just stop the run, if you can keep a lid on Katron Allen, if you can keep a lid on Nick Singleton, then that puts you in a really good spot, because Penn State just does not have guys who win on the outside reliably. So if you establish control of that run game, then I think that puts you in a really good spot defensively to win the game.
Yeah, it's a situation. Let's say I did 2 or 3 crossovers with Zach Seiko from Locked On Nittany Lions, and the Big Ten, when you talk to him, the Big Ten they do not get tempo. They don't understand how that affects ball games. And they're talking about, we substitute enough players, the tempo isn't going to matter. And it's like, wait, you legitimately don't get this concept. And I'm interested to see if Ole Miss can get a couple of first downs and get that tempo rolling to everybody's like, whoa.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. Penn State has tried to do tempo offense a couple of times that I can remember. And they start doing it and they just kind of evolve out of it. This year, they've done a lot of like check with me stuff. They're like a huge check with me team. You're going to see Drew Aller clap, look to the sideline, read the cards. They do a ton of that. I don't know, for whatever reason, the Big Ten just kind of has not adopted that. And, it's interesting. You'd think maybe one of like, the Indianas, the Illinois, the programs that are a tier below might try to innovate a little bit and adopt it and just see how it works. But there just really hasn't been that much of it.
Yeah, Penn State leads the Big Ten in time of possession. Ole Miss and Penn State, this is like the trend tempo-wise. It's going to be polar opposites. Penn State, if they get the ball, they want 7 minutes and to score a touchdown. That's their ideal drive. If you look at another thing, Tennessee's playing Iowa, and that's almost that's even more extreme than Ole Miss and Penn State.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's Penn State is caught, and I know I'm talking a lot about Penn State here, but Penn State is caught in this place where it wants to be that. Like, make no mistake, Penn State would love to have an explosive offense. It would love to. That's why that they fired their offensive coordinator, is because they had like 13 plays of 20 yards or more through 10 weeks or something atrocious. So they would love to do that. They just can't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I haven't paid that much close attention to them this year to really understand it. But yeah, it's you're right. They are 3 yard and a cloud of dust by necessity because the other stuff doesn't work.
Yeah, and I'm talking about that Tennessee-Iowa game as well. Tennessee is an 8-point favorite in that game. The over-under is what?
Oh, gosh. 38.5.
35. The over-under of a Tennessee football game is 35.
No.
Yeah. It's going to be fantastic. Anyway, what are the who do you kind of pick to click in this game? Who are the players that people need to be watching for?
Yeah. I think one of the matchups that's going to decide this game is Kalen King against Tre Harris. That Kalen King is an NFL prospect corner. Hasn't really had the year that I think he wanted to, but he's still a dude. And, obviously Ole Miss needs Tre Harris to have big games to succeed. So I think that's a matchup I'm really watching. I'll take Tre Harris against just about everybody in the country right now. Like, he's just
there's not that Texas A&M game.
Yeah, there's not a player on this roster whose game I like more. I love some Tre Harris. But I guess defensively, right, you're kind of looking at, can Ole Miss win inside? JJP's, right? How he plays is going to be a big deal. Some of the other depth options there. Akello Stone, what does he do? And then, the linebackers, right? Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste is going to have a good game. Ashanti Sistrunk as well. So that
EJ Dudley.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll see how much he's involved. He was at practice, dressed and practicing. He's on the roster now, which he had not been previously. I don't really know how much he's going to play. I'm not sure. We'll see. But yeah, that's definitely an X factor for sure.
Yeah. Should be interesting. What is your predictions for the game going over? How do you think it plays out? What are your predictions, how this goes?
All right, Stephen, here's what I've been doing with this question, because it's a complicated one for me. I am 50-50. All right. I genuinely think this is a coin flip. I've been picking Ole Miss kind of with a little bit of the Kirk Herbstreit factor. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be the guy, the Penn State alum, who picks Penn State in the 50-50 game. I just refuse. So we'll go with Ole Miss. I think it's a 3-point game either way. I think the spread is like 3.5. So I think
it's gone up to 4.5 today.
Oh, 4. Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, that might be a little bit too much for me, but I do think it's kind of in that area. But yeah, I think I'll lean Ole Miss. I just think in these type of games, right, they have an explosive ability that Penn State does not. Ole Miss has proven, like we talked about, to be proficient at kind of circumventing the strengths that Penn State has in the trenches on both sides of the ball. So yeah, I think I don't know. We'll lean Ole Miss, but my real answer is I have no idea.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man. I think it is going to be a carbon copy of the Texas A&M game. Not necessarily first half and second half, but the way that is the tightness of the game. I think Ole Miss is going to be able to move the ball. There's going to be some bowl chaos that happens, and Penn State's able to score some points, and it's going to end up being the 34-31 type range.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I could totally see that. And look, Penn State has been a little bit better offensively since they made the offensive coordinator change. I can tell you, Ole Miss is expecting some wrinkles from Penn State's new OC, who isn't coaching the game, but I'm sure we'll have an input on, what they do. So, like you said, maybe they do have, a big player or two in the bag, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. David Eckert, First of all, before I let you out of here, how is the media spread there?
It's delightful. Free everything, Stephen. Free everything. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. I had some steak for lunch. That's what we're doing here. Free steak for lunch, Stephen, not dinner, lunch. So
man,
yeah, we're living it up.
Yeah, and I'm going in on Friday. I'm going to the Under Armour All-American game, and I'm covering that one. When that means I'll get a ticket to like complimentary McDonald's. That is the different worlds that we're living in right now.
Well, enjoy your McFlurry, Stephen. I hope it's delicious.
All right, thank you, David. Enjoy the game, and we'll talk to you later, bud.
All right, thanks, Stephen.